This week proved it. The left's entire narrative is falling apart. CNN turned on Democrats, their shutdown lie backfired, and even cultural figures are calling them out.
Do you believe this will be the week that Congress comes to an agreement here?
I have no idea. I mean, you started off talking about the fact that the president is in Japan. The president has time to do everything but what he needs to focus on. In fact, we heard the press secretary say that his main priority is the ballroom that no one asked for, the ballroom that requires him to destroy historic pieces of the White House. And so it doesn't seem like he's interested.
And that context of the comment from Caroline Leavitt, she was asked if the president was working on any other renovations when it came to the White House, and she was saying his focus was the ballroom. But to your point about what the president said.
Should the Democratic senators from New Mexico, your home state, vote to open the government so that these SNAP funds are not at risk?
Let me be clear. The administration is choosing to starve American children with money that they already have appropriated.
I'm not applauding their tactics.
By the White House.
Well,
this is a choice by the White House.
This is also, Congresswoman, this is also a choice by Senate Democrats to not vote to open the government. Yes, it is. I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want Medicaid funds restored. They're doing it because they want Obamacare premiums to be extended past the end of the year. I understand the reasoning.
Sir, let me just be clear. The money for contingency plans is sitting there. That is why the states are suing. The White House is withholding funds from
2 to 3 weeks worth of SNAP
funds.
Food. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it may not be a big deal to you, but let me tell you that for the grandparents, for grandparents that literally are feeding their children.
My point is that it's a short-term solution.
In those accounts.
It's a short-term.
At the end of the day, people need to be able to feed their families, and Saturday is when those funds run out.
If you feel so
and
strongly,
we are fighting
Congresswoman,
to
why not ask the Senate Democrats from New Mexico to vote to open the government so that the SNAP funds...
Sir, I am here in the House of Representatives. It is shut down. I am fighting to get the government reopened. I am fighting to get funding put back into SNAP that is already existent, and I am fighting for the American people. I am here. But show me a single Republican that is here. Not a single one is here to make sure that Americans are fed on Saturday. That is why I am here.
Hell just froze over. CNN actually fact-checked Democrat Jasmine Crockett's out of context Trump quotes. Even Jack Tapper had to admit it. This is a choice by Senate Democrats to not vote to open the government. CNN said it. Not Fox. Not conservative. CNN.
So it brought you a little visual aid here to just remind everybody what the simple facts are. 4 simple facts here. The Democrats are required to open the government. They keep saying Republicans are in charge of government. We aren't. Not in the Senate. 60 votes control the Senate. Not a bare majority. And so point number 1, Democrat votes are required to open the government. Point number 2, they refuse to do it. They have now voted 12 times to keep the government closed. And they'll have another chance today or tomorrow, maybe multiple times this week, and we'll see what they do. Now, the third point is very important because they've been trying to confuse the American people. They've tried to say this is a fight about health care or this or that or any other thing, and it's very simple. They put this on paper. They made this their demand in writing in the record of the Senate, and it has not changed. These are just 4 subpoints there under fact number 3, but there's many more. But among the things they're demanding, this is what the Democrats in the Senate are demanding to reopen the government. They want to give $200 billion in health benefits to illegal aliens and non-citizens, paid for by U.S. taxpayers. That is in their proposal. They want billions in wasteful programs to be returned to foreign countries. So we stopped these things. They want to turn it all back on. They're demanding that we do all that to get the government open for hardworking Americans again. They want to give $500 million to left-leaning news organizations, and they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals. We will not do those things. And they know that very well. Which leads us to point number 4. The Democrats have now openly admitted, and you all had to cover it last week, that they're using the pain of the American people as their leverage. That was the number 2 ranked Democrat in the House, the Democrat, the minority whip, who said that, acknowledged it in an interview, that this is leverage. And Chuck Schumer himself boasted that every day of the shutdown gets better for us. That's his now infamous quote that he wishes he had not said out loud. but you know what they're doing and why. Why are they demanding these things? Why is point number 3 so essential to them? Why would they do this? Because it's unprecedented, as we've noticed, and reminded you all, they voted for CRs every time it was possible in their lives, as recently as March of this year. But they're doing it to appease their far-left Marxist base. That's the headline. That's why. That's why we're all in this mess. That's why the American people are suffering pain, because the Democrats are more afraid of the Marxist in their base than they are of hardworking Americans. See, they've made an evaluation that they have to appease the Marxist base, that they're so concerned that they'll lose their jobs if they don't appease the far left in their party. And they sat in a back room and they made the calculation that they would rather shut the government down and impose all this pain on the American people because they believe the Marxists, the far left in the base, are more active than hardworking Americans, people who go vote. And so they made the calculation that it's worth it to them. Every day gets better for us. We'll use the pain as leverage. For what? To prove to the far left base that they won't give in, that they'll fight Trump and fight the Republicans. What are they fighting? It's a clean CR. It's the same level of funding that they have voted for as recently as earlier this year. They are Biden-level policies and spending. This is not some Republican wish list. We don't have any of our priorities in this at all. It's the Democrats' own product. But they have decided to flip the script this time because they were getting too much heat from the far left.
Democrats have voted 13 times to keep the government closed. They're blocking SNAP and military pay unless they get billions for foreign projects and leftist pet causes. Then blame Trump, claiming he's illegally blocking food stamps. Reality check. Congress controls funding, and the Democrats are the ones keeping it shut down.
Starting with Republicans, how has the shutdown seemed to have affected their political standing?
Yeah, you might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at is, well, hey, why should we give, and electorally speaking, when our brand has actually improved a little bit?
Now, we say their position is getting better. With whom?
Yeah, okay, with whom? So I think it's two groups that it's so important to keep an eye out on. All right, change in the Republican Congress's net approval rating versus pre-shutdown. It's rallying the base for sure. Look at this, the net approval rating up 12 points versus pre-shutdown. But it's not just with the base. It's also with the middle of the electorate. Look at this, among independents. It's up 8 points as well. So we've got a situation here where Republicans with the shutdown are actually rallying their base, but it's also something that's not hurting them with the folks in the middle. If anything, it's helping them with folks in the middle. And this is the type of math that if you're Republicans, you like to see, right? Because something could rally the base but alienate those in the middle, or something could rally those in the middle but alienate the base. But the truth is, we're not seeing that. What we're seeing is the Republican brand has actually gotten better among independents, and it's also gotten better among Republicans as well, that Republican brand when it comes to those in Congress. So again, what's the electoral reason that Republicans would give in at this point?
And Democrats, of course, they have their eyes on the midterm elections. Yeah, we have elections 1 week from today, but what Democrats in Congress are mostly focused on are 1 year and 1 week from today from the midterm. So how are they positioned right now?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the generic congressional ballot, which traditionally Democrats have done really well on, and if you look at this point back when Trump was president the first time around, Democrats are up 11 points. Look at where it is now. Democrats are ahead, but they're actually only up 3 points. This is, in fact, the worst position Democrats have been on in a generic ballot at this point in midterm when there was a Republican president in the last 20 years. And this is no different from pre-shutdown. So Republicans aren't losing on this metric either. They become more popular, and they're actually in a pretty good position for them historically when it comes to the generic congressional ballot.
This is a concerning number for Democrats, are you saying?
This is a concerning number for Democrats because it's considerably worse than they traditionally do in midterm elections when there's a Republican president.
Harriet, thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Even CNN admits it. Republicans are gaining support while Democrats have hit their worst polling numbers in 20 years. Chuck Schumer said, "Every day gets better for us." Wrong. Every day is getting better for Trump. Meanwhile, Americans are exposing the truth about SNAP. People are selling $4,000 in food stamps for $1,000 cash.
I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. Like, the real reason why a lot of people are upset about this whole food stamps, SNAP benefit thing bro, is because they're selling their food stamps, bro. They're selling them. I'm telling you, they are selling their food stamps, bro. You know how many people in New York and other states right now are going to the corner store, the deli, and they're selling their food stamps, bro? They're selling, that's why they're getting like $4,000, $3,000 in food stamps, and they're selling it for cash. They'll get $4,000 in food stamps, and they'll just take like $1,000 in cash. Like, bro, like that's happening like everywhere. That's why they're mad. That is exactly why they're mad right now. And you know the thing about it too? They will never admit to selling their food stamps. But it's happening.
And here's the real bombshell. 59% of illegal aliens are collecting food stamps. Democrats call it compassion. Americans call it theft.
There are 42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps. 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
CNN cut off Katia Miller after she said Biden's press secretary is only known for being a black, queer, LGBTQ woman.
What I think you're seeing and what Karen is attesting to is that she is quite incompetent to do the job, right? This is what Republicans have been saying for years now, is that she is just another evidence that DEI doesn't work, whether that's in the White House in your press secretary role or whether that's an air traffic controller, an air pilot, whether that's your doctor. You want to hire the best for the role. Not just based on skin color, Jake. Why did she get the job over John Kirby?
Well, why are we assuming that she, as a black LGBT, gay woman, is DEI, but a white woman who is behind the podium right now, which DEI initially started as affirmative action, which was about affirmatively hiring women and minorities? Why is one DEI and the other is not?
Why did she get the job over John Kirby? Because as everyone has said this week, she is woefully incompetent.
She had the job long before John Kirby.
I will just say she used to be a commentator on CNN, then she was one on MSNBC. Mm-hmm. And she was good at that. Like, I mean, I'm without getting into the job I thought she did as press secretary. I thought it didn't seem crazy to me because she was eloquent as a commentator.
Why is she trained every 4 sentences to say she is a black, queer, LGBTQ woman? Because that's how she's been promoted her entire career.
Anyway, Katie Miller and Karen Finney, thank you so much.
They could not handle it because that's the left's entire brand, identity over merit. And now, even people on their own side are done with it.
Yes, and I listened to your monologue, Sean, with all of these different characters. I thought to myself, even duct tape can't fix stupid. I don't know Ms. Wallace. I've watched her a little bit. I remember when she worked for President Bush. I suppose she's not as bad as some members of the liberal media, but that's faint praise. That's like it's like being the smartest person on The View. I'm going to give Ms. Wallace the benefit of the doubt and assume that she said what she said right after her morning beer. The Democrats have accused the President Trump of everything except abandoning his children to wolves. They daily call him a racist and a Nazi. The Democrats are angry. They're angry for 2 reasons. They're angry because President Trump won the election. The American people spoke. My Democratic colleagues need to just drink a big old glass of get over it and let's move on. They're mad, number 2, they're mad that the American people are mad about the shutdown. It was so needless. I voted 13 times to open government back up. The Democrats have voted 13 times to keep it shut down. They don't want to pay food stamps. They don't want to pay the military. They want to use this as leverage to gain more money to spend. Senator Schumer, my colleague, eagerly, greedily wanted to become the face of the shutdown. I was looking at a poll today of what the American people think of Senator Schumer. It was an Economist YouGov poll, which is very left of center. The American people, in the American people's opinion, Senator Schumer is he's a wet match in a dark cave. He polls right up there with clubbing baby seals. He's got a 30% approval rating, a 60% disapproval rating, and 10% of folks polled just didn't want to pause their video games to answer. It's not working. The American people may not read Aristotle every day, but they get it. This is not a policy shutdown.
Stephen A. Smith just called out Michelle Obama for guilt stripping black voters over Kamala Harris. He said it, stop weaponizing identity. That's not progress, that's manipulation.
I respectfully disagreed and still remain pretty salty about what you said about us. And I feel even more adamant about what your husband, Barack Obama, said when he talked to those men in Pittsburgh and implied that to not vote for Kamala is because we're engaging in some sort of misogyny. There are issues that matter to every American citizen. And to sort of blackmail us emotionally into trying to compel us to vote one way or another is part of what won Trump the election. Because that side of the aisle was able to look at the left and say, look at what they'll do to win. And y'all talking about him like he's worse. And in a lot of y'all eyes, he is worse. But that didn't make y'all clean. It really, really didn't.
Michael Knowles destroyed Cory Booker so badly, the senator walked out mid-discussion.
I think Senator Booker made a good point just a moment ago when he said we have to self-examine, we have to be introspective. And, I can't help but think of a line today. Jay Jones has the vision, commitment, and integrity to keep families safe and make sure every Virginian gets a fair shake in the justice system. I'll be working every day to ensure Jay wins this race. That's the endorsement of Senator Booker for a man who would seek to be the Attorney General of Virginia. This is a man who, if people have not been reading the news, has called for a Republican to be murdered, for his children to be murdered, for the children to die in their mother's arms in order to persuade the Republican to change his policy views, and a man who says that he would urinate on the graves of multiple Republicans. Senator Booker, in this spirit of introspection, is standing by this endorsement. So I suppose I would invite, well, perhaps I should have looked, because Senator Booker has left the room, and I think I can guess why. Senator Booker, I think, should practice what he preaches, because this is the kind of moment. You cannot have a professor who wants to teach students and is going to desire to kill half of them. You certainly cannot have law enforcement officers who would engage in this kind of violent rhetoric against half of their constituents. So long as anyone stands by an endorsement such as that, their words are meaningless. They are shedding crocodile tears on the topic of political violence.
He won't. Look, he hasn't for years and years. He's been attacking me, and it's one way, and he won't have me on. He's consistently not having me on. By the way, I'm moving on. I have no interest.
You're done with him?
Joe Rogan's the Facebook of podcasting. He was sitting across one of the brightest minds in podcasting right now. The guy was in the mic. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people at the mic doing extraordinary things in podcasting.
Joe Rogan's got a pretty big audience still.
You know what? But with all due respect, if he has a big audience but he doesn't have big enough confidence, I didn't go there, to have me on.
Well, you've called him a chicken.
But he's been attacking for... here's the thing. These guys, they all have something in common. It's one way. They attack, they belittle, they demean, they take things out of context. But this is a serious thing.
Yeah.
And so often we just sit back and go, oh, God, I really would love to go on. Oh, if Kamala Harris just went on Joe Rogan, she would have won. It's not. It's so much deeper than that. And the unwillingness for a guy like that to even have the common courtesy to attack someone and not have the decency say, you know what, why don't you have a chance to come on? Let's have a civil dialogue. I've watched you on podcasts with like Sean Ryan, who's a close buddy of his. He had the courage on me have 4 hours.
Right.
Sean Hannity, folks like that. And so if I can go on Sean Ryan and Sean Hannity, what are you worried about? Joe, you're going to cook me, or I'm going to cook myself.
Of the Empowerment Control Act of 1974. The contingency funding that we set aside for SNAP is not optional spending. It is required by the law. We appropriated that money for this purpose. The White House must spend it, and what they are doing right now, blocking these funds from going out, is illegal. As a matter of fact, on October 1st, they took $750 million from this fund to deal with paying benefits in Puerto Rico and providing administrative costs to other states. So they acknowledge that this fund can be used in order to deal with SNAP benefits. There is nothing stopping the Trump administration from making sure that every single one of the 42 million Americans, 16 million children, 8 million seniors, 4 million people with disabilities, 1.2 million veterans receive nutrition assistance in November. And we are at a cost of living crisis with skyrocketing food costs. And President Trump is doing right now is using the fear that so many working people have about where their next meal is coming from as a political bargaining chip. Does anyone actually?
Tradition of auto pens has existed in every presidential administration across parties. I had an auto pen when I worked at ICE.
I'm sorry, Elliot Williams.
Elliot Williams literally had an auto pen.
You were important enough to have an auto pen. I'm so impressed.
I am important, Casey. But no, and so it's a common practice.
Did you allow people to use the name Elliot Williams without your knowledge of the document or what was on the page?
I don't recall. So
I'm asking you, if you were a government official and you had an auto pen, which you did, would you let some staffer sign things in your name without reading?
Yeah, here's the question. Was my authority delegated to that person? And I think they do have the authority to do so. Laws and regulations, and I'm serious, Scott, laws and regulations.
The authority to delegate pardons and executive orders, the President of the United States can say, you unelected staffer can go sign my name on a document that I've never seen for a decision that I've never made?
Quite often, the United States Code delegates authority. So through the President of the United States, through the Attorney General, whatever else, X person can carry out a function. And certainly that could be the case. Now, Donald Trump, for instance, in his first term, pardoned like 1,600 people. And I have a hard time believing that he was aware of every single person that he was pardoning. One could make a challenge. Every president does this. Now, if it's a question about Biden's fitness for office, did he know what he was? Of course, raise that question. But I just, one, given how vast the pardon power is, and two, given how comprehensive the use of auto pens are across administrations, I have a hard time seeing a legal challenge.
Nobody can be delegated the pardon power.
Yes.
It is a constitutional power.
Yes.
And I don't really think you can delegate the executive order power either, because the executive has to make the order.
So, Scott, the president.
Democrats built their power on lies, guilt, and fear. But this week showed what happens when truth hits back. Don't forget to stay informed and share this if you agree, because the collapse of the old left isn't coming. It's already here.